everyone, welcome to Lady V's political review, which is something slightly different to some of the things that I've done before, but really pertinent at the moment because the UK general election is only 2 days away, and so I'm making this video to try and consolidate my own ideas on the beliefs that I have aligned with different political parties, to try and maybe inspire other people that are maybe not too sure what's going on, and also maybe to educate people about my own opinions, all the views that I express on my own personal opinions, apart from obviously any information that is in on party websites or in the political manifestos. I will post links around, and certainly at the bottom of the post on my YouTube channel, to all of the party websites and any sort of third party links and things like that I mention. So I'm going to be fairly broad ranging and try and give a little bit of a rundown of the main political parties. And I have my trusty notebook with me as well that I've made a few notes of, so please bear with me a little bit. But I would say that election time is both my favourite and my least favourite time in just political culture, Western political culture, because my favourite in the sense that there is so much potential. There's a sense of community within people aligning their beliefs with certain people, and there's a lot of talk about opportunity to make things better and maybe to have a discussion about things that people think are working and things that aren't working. It's a good time to evaluate the current governmental regime that we have, and to hold them accountable for the things that they've done over the last 5 years and what we agree with and what we don't agree with. It's also my least favourite time because it seems so open to exploitation, people's emotional exploitation, by political parties that produce political spin, and they actually employ people called spin doctors. I'll post a link to the technical definition of what political spin is, and it's a thing that goes on shamelessly to put certain slants on policies and maybe things that party have done whilst in government and in power, to make things seem the best possible, which is understandable, but sometimes that's not necessarily the truth, or what I would perceive to be the truth. Political rhetoric that gets used a lot, so by that I mean just going back to old party stances on certain things about like austerity. How many times have we heard that word recently? Does anybody even really know what that means to them and what the actual translation of that has been and what's actually happened in their life due to the austerity measures? A few people will, but a lot of people on a general daily basis, it's just numbers on sheets of paper. But really what it comes down to is on the front line, I suppose it's people's daily lives being changed, with maybe welfare benefits being cut and things like that. But there is, of course, political rhetoric on the opposite side, on the left-wing side of things as well. So to do with inequality of opportunity, inequality of welfare standards and things like that. So it works both ways. So empty promises, I think there's a lot of people would maybe agree with that after the last election as well, especially for any Liberal Democrat, Lib Dem voters. They would maybe feel that a coalition for such a left-wing party to sort of collide and go into cahoots with and form a coalition with a right-wing party like the Conservatives was maybe a break from their roots and makes them less genuine and has ruined their integrity as a party, one may say. So that's why it's also my least favourite time of year, because I feel that myself and my fellow members of the electorate, the proles, look that up, are sort of emotionally manipulated, certainly by all parties actually, no matter which party you align yourself with, and independent candidates as well, because people want your vote, and so sometimes they might say things that maybe they're not sure how they're going to come good on those promises, but they'll promise the earth. So within the sphere of my blog and my interests and things like that, you may guess where maybe my political allegiances lie a little bit, but I wanted to give a quick rundown very briefly, really easy, otherwise I could go on and on and on forever about it. Politics is a subject that I really like to get into, but then I end up feeling like I'm arguing with myself and everyone else around me. But if you have different ideas, then you can politely comment on my posts, and I'm happy to get into any sort of polite and respectful debate with anybody. So a quick rundown really of party stances on animal welfare. Up first, may as well go for the current government, which is a Conservative / Liberal Democrat coalition. So I'm going to focus on the Conservative aspect of things because it's a good place to start. So animal welfare wise, the Conservatives are, many of them, apart from a few rebels within the party that don't toe the sort of general consensus and the party line, are pro-hunt, so pro-fox hunting, which is actually illegal under the hunting ban that was brought in by the previous Labour government. They are well known and well spotted for being sympathetic towards hunts. I believe that David Cameron's wife, her father, is the owner of one of the hunts, is the leader of one of the hunts, for which information I can pop in my my description for this video. And so they have no interest in strengthening the Hunting Act. It's been flaunted about a bit that they would like to repeal the Hunting Act. They're very sympathetic towards people having the freedom to do what they want. There's also within the pro-hunt lobby, there's a lot of, they just do drag hunting, where they and just following scent trails, where they can not actually be following a live fox, and they're not, the hounds aren't going after a quarry, so after a live animal, it's just a scent. But there are many people with first-hand experience that is not always the case, and sometimes often isn't the case at all. So believe what you will on that side, but I don't think the Conservatives as a whole would disagree that they are by and large pro-hunt. So that's one area in which a lot of the British public feel quite strongly about, one way or the other. I personally think that fox hunting is indicative of insanity, and I don't really understand why anybody would do it. I don't really understand why anyone would want to scent hunt or drag hunt, but if they want to and they're not hurting anyone, then that's absolutely fine. There are loads of questions about the animal welfare issues and the welfare of the dogs that are used, the hounds that are used in hunting. So it isn't just the fox or the badger or the hare or whatever is being hunted as the issue. It's the welfare of the dogs and how much care that they're actually shown, which is very debatable as well, but that's a different conversation. So in a political sphere, the Conservatives believe very much in liberal markets, which means that people can act selfishly, in a sense, act for the good of yourself, and that will automatically, on the whole, benefit the whole of society. And there are some real key people that you can look up. You can look up Milton Friedman and also Adam Smith, way back, the guy that's on Our Money. You can look them up for liberal market ideals and the invisible hand economy and things like that, if you're interested in that sort of thing. But it would stand to reason that the the right wings and liberal marketeers like the Conservatives agree that the government should have less of a hand in a lot of things and leave people by and large to their own decisions, and they will be judged by the people that they are interacting with. So if people try and put a product out there and people don't like it, no one will buy it, which means that that business will fail. And there's a certain Darwinism and Darwinian sort of poetry to that, and it's quite enticing. However, with animal welfare, I believe that it means that there are not enough tight restrictions and regulations, and not enough thought really generally given to animal welfare, whether it's livestock welfare for farming or things like hunting, maybe enforcing illegal dog fighting, policing, things like this that goes on. There tends to be quite biased towards the people that maybe disagree with hunting with animals and fighting with animals. The police can be blamed for being a bit slack on the side of trying to sort the people out that are actually doing it, rather than spending their time chasing and arresting and wasting time with the people that are protesting against it. But again, that's just my opinion. So the Conservatives really are not going to do anything, in my mind, to strengthen animal welfare policies that I believe are very important. So that's to sum them up really, but do your own research and have a little look into it. The Liberal Democrats, the other part of the coalition, I find it hard to take anything that would be in their manifesto seriously due to previous experience of their political dealings, i.e. the coalition. So I'm not going to go into what their policies are, for good or for worse. Definitely, I'll pop their website link down in the description or as a title on this video when I finish, so you can just follow a link or copy and paste it into URL. But I don't really want to waste my time sort of discussing them, because I feel that there's not really much point, because they could go back on their word anyway with previous experience. Labour. So New Labour, the party that we have and that we can vote for these days, is ideologically New Labour, not Old Labour. New Labour has been discussed as being slightly left of centre on the political scale, rather than being maybe having like the Tories, the Conservatives, and far right groups like arguably UKIP and BNP and things like that, rather than having them on one side and then what would have been Old Labour, so trade unionists and very socialist, on the far left. New Labour occupies a space to me that is just left of centre, so more socialist and welfare driven policies for both, mainly humans, but also there is some animal welfare policy in there as well. There's not as much commitment to those sorts of policies as maybe there would have been with Old Labour, if we still had that sort of mentality within the Labour Party. So I think they're sort of fairly left of centre. They do have animal welfare issues in their manifesto. If you look for it, it isn't something that they splash about on their propaganda posters. Propaganda is probably a really harsh word, but just publicity posters and things before the election. They do claim that they want to strengthen the hunting ban. And they do claim that, I was at a political hustings recently that had Kerry McCarthy, who is a Bristolian Labour Party MP and is standing for re-election again, and she was saying that the arrests and the prosecutions that are happening, for example, due to the hunting ban, are being successful, and even though there's still a long way to go, the policy with the hunting ban that they brought in is working, is having small but consistent victories. So that was quite interesting. They're slightly more towards the animal welfare side of things, but they don't really offer much radical change. But I think the hunting ban certainly and more looking into more dog fighting and things like that would be on the agenda a bit with Labour. Doing a lot of umming and ahhing, but I'm just thinking there's so many different factors and things to think of really when discussing just politics in general. So I think with Labour they are keeping the sort of animal rights people happy without making too much of a outlandish commitment to anything. They're like, well, we don't have any plans to repeal the Hunting Act, and we do want to increase animal welfare standards just across like livestock. The whole CCTV in slaughterhouses campaign, they claim to be in support of that and believe that that should be rolled out and reinforced and sort of developed upon. So that's that. So a slightly watered down version of animal welfare, I feel, but still inevitably there is something in there. As far as the Green Party go, they are the only party that seem to offer a real consolidated animal welfare manifesto. They offer a rather radical approach to just politics in general. Who's to say that the current political system that we have, which is quite top down, and in that sense, like liberalists and right wingers would think that that's not the case. They would say that well, we leave the markets, basically capitalism, like real neo-capitalism, we leave them to themselves and they can regulate themselves and things like that, and everything will just work out okay from that. But I view it in a top down, as in the top, as in a triangle like this. So you've got a small amount of people at the top who are dictating the way that the rest of us, so at the bottom where the majority of people are within this sort of part of the triangle, the majority of us live within that, and we are sort of, the rules are made and we are made to believe or encouraged to believe that this is the way that things are, because it suits, without getting too sort of socialist, it suits the few at the top to carry on with the way that things are. And that definitely goes for animal welfare as well. Like I was saying before, if you're talking about hunting, it's a tradition. Apparently that's a phrase bandied about by pro-hunt, but it's a tradition for often the wealthy minority and also those that tag along with the wealthy minority. So you know who you are. So I feel that possibly there could be a bit of swing, which is a political term for people going from one party to another. Since the last vote, the political swing could be maybe those that were fairly socialist, and maybe with the Liberal Democrats last time, maybe there will be people will be pushed maybe towards Green more, because they are the only ones that seem to offer a viable alternative to the Liberal Democrats. Those that don't vote Liberal Democrat again. The Greens do propose really radical socialist reform, and I think they would really like to see socialist revolution. So when I say that, I don't mean Fidel Castro and Che Guevara guerrilla revolution where a government needs to be physically forced and overthrown. I mean social revolution, as in a really radical change of the collective mentality that we have. And in that sense, I can see how attractive the ideal of the idea of that is. It does seem quite idealistic on the whole, and one of their main animal welfare issues is to target the commonplace assumption that mass factory farming is okay and is preferable and is the only way to live in today's society. And it is difficult to think, well, what else is there? Because there are so many people in the world, and we've come to a place that's so far along the scale that how do we feed everybody and clothe everybody and things like that if we don't keep mass producing? And just like we mass produce plastic items and recyclable goods and things like that, for packaging or toys or shabby chic stuff like this. I've even got one here. Like I don't think this is a genuine sort of like whittled and sanded African bowl. Look, it's got some sort of thing on here. Who knows? Mango wood. Okay, so it is genuine wood, but it could have been run off a production line in a third world country, and I probably wouldn't know. It was bought for me. So in the same way that we mass produce all these tat, for want of a better term, we also are mass producing animals, and that's something that sits really terribly with me. And I think it's easy. The current government, and I'm not saying that Labour would be any different either, the current main parties, as in Conservatives, Liberal Democrats and Labour, don't seem to be in any hurry to highlight to us just what impact we're having on not only animal welfare but also the mass consumption of over processed meat, is what that is doing to us as a nation, or any of you guys that do eat meat, how that's filtering into our food crops and things like that. So even things that I eat, like plenty of fruit and veg and things like that, but also the impact that it's having on the environment and the amount of scary information that there is on programs such as on Netflix is fantastic. You can find loads of documentaries and things that have been made. So you've got like Vegucation is one interesting one, Fed Up as well. Super Size Me is interesting from more of like train wreck TV where you just can't stop watching, but things like that give they're not just focused on animal welfare. It's not just about that, it's the whole view of what it's doing to our insides and what it's doing to the environment and things like that. Just mass factory farming, so treating the production of animals, because that's what we do in a sense. We're artificially inseminating female animals to constantly have babies and constantly produce milk. So it's a production chain. So in cold terms, like that is what's going on. It's just like mass production of animals, and that view that is acceptable. I mean, it certainly is the norm now, I suppose, which is disgusting to me. But the fact that it's viewed as acceptable and the only way is worrying, and it's quite attractive to hear people say that it doesn't have to be the only way, and it's not that things could radically change in a month or a year or 5 years, one political term in power, but it's something that the governments could go such a long way to highlighting these facts. I mean, why aren't these programs on primetime TV and sort of, instead of maybe all the like ridiculous adverts for Wonga and shouldn't say exact names, but just money lending companies and solicitor companies for, has somebody done something wrong to you once in your life? Did you fall over in the street? Probably your own fault. Oh, well, you can sue them, that sort of mentality. Why are we not scrapping crap like that, basically? I'm putting these really hard-hitting and impacting programs to educate people. And I have my own views about why we are not so openly educated about animal welfare issues on a political and media scale, like why the government and the media don't really maybe want us to be that educated. It's not in their best interests to educate people and have people actually going, no, actually that's wrong, and standing up and saying, even if they want to carry on eating meat, that it shouldn't be done in this way, and that they want better standards for what they're eating. And I know that I'm definitely not the only person that thinks the things that I think, but I'm not going to go into it now because I've already been recording for like 20 odd minutes, and so it's just going to go on and on. But I would really like try and stress so much how it'd be really great for me to know that people are going to look more into different political parties. Even if you're not in the UK, if you're watching from somewhere else and you or are an animal lover, look at what your political candidates say about animal welfare. Look at what your political party of choice, or if you don't have one, you should look at all of them anyway before you make your choice, because you want to make an informed decision. But animal welfare gets put on the back burner so often. And that's understandable, because people are concerned about themselves, about humans, and about the economy, and to a large extent about the environment as well, which is great. And it's not that you should not care about those things, but animal welfare is something that it does affect us all, like the whole food chain. If we start to have less fish in the seas, which we are, that's going to impact greatly on the whole ecosystem that we have, the whole global ecosystem, and so many sort of micro systems that there are within nature that are going to have, like the butterfly effect, they're going to have a big knock-on effect. And it isn't that it's not too late to slow down the impact that we're having. A lot of the impact that we're having is needless, and there are really little changes that we can make. And I think being politically active, I understand people's apathy so much when people are like, oh, I don't want to vote, like what's the point, they're all liars anyway, and things like that people say. And I do see exactly why people feel like that, and I have to suppress those feelings myself so often. But there's a campaign at the moment that I would really, really, really just couldn't ask you enough to check out, which is hashtag Votes for Animals. And it involves the three organisations. So you've got Animal Aid charity that most people will have heard of, and you have the Common Decency campaign, which is led by Brian May, Queen guitarist. I'm so talented, so musically talented. He was really strongly involved in the anti-badger cull campaign last year, and he has a Common Decency organisation or initiative now in the run-up to the election, and not only about anti-badger culling, but basically what the Common Decency campaign is trying to do is encourage people to educate themselves a little bit about voting, and to try and encourage people to vote, and not to just be apathetic and sit back and let everything happen. And also, whilst they're voting, to look at who they're voting for, and exactly how welfare driven these parties might be, or the policies might be, so to do with people and the environment and animals. So it's a really good campaign to have a little look at, Common Decency. So we've got Animal Aid and Common Decency within the Votes for Animals, and there's also LACS, which are the League Against Cruel Sports. And so they, if you can imagine, like they have their fingers in so many pies. They've got so many things that they would really like to see. For example, like not using the whip in horse racing, so not attacking horse racing itself, but the fact that jockeys still whip the horses, which we can all see when it's on TV, and it's really unnecessary. And obviously things like fox hunting, but also like dog fighting and things like that. They're really against any sort of abuse of animals for human gain, so whether it's financial or just enjoyment, because for some reason some people seem to get a kick out of those things. So those three organisations and initiatives have all come together in the Votes for Animals campaign, and the overall feeling is to consider animal welfare when you are placing your vote, or when you're thinking about who to vote. If you can't vote this time round, but because you're not old enough, but you're going to be voting the next time round, then you've got 5 years. So you've got ages to find out exactly what means a lot to you, and what means what would be like make or break between one party or another. It's really difficult. I certainly don't find it easy at all. I love politics because it's just the study of how we organise ourselves en masse as the human race, and it's so interesting, but it's really, really infuriating sometimes, and quite often it can make me just feel like this. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't vote, or that you can't vote, because if you don't, then shut up about anything that goes on in your life. Because do check out the Votes for Animals campaign. Check out all the political parties if you're still undecided, or even if you've decided and you're definitely sure that you're voting for X, Y, or Z party, then just have a little look at what they're saying, basically. And maybe if you know how to get in touch with your local candidate, MP, representative, get in touch with them and ask them for a tailored response. Maybe email what they say about the things that are really important to you. And I hope that you have been slightly inspired by my ramblings. It's basically just for me it's very self-gratifying just because it's me just talking to you guys about what's on my mind quite a lot. But I just wonder whether other people have the same things on their mind, and whether the same things are of interest to them, and that they're finding it quite difficult to make any political choices. So 2 days, May the 7th. Hope you've got your polling cards. Do some research. Time's not up yet. Your decisions might not have been made. You can have a little look. Good luck, and thank you for watching. Check out my blog, which is here. And also I am on Instagram and Twitter, so come over and drop me a message, and I will see you very soon. Bye!